Hello there, welcome to Blitz Transmissions. I'm Tommy, and in today's video, we're going to be covering what I want most as far as new clone troopers go for Hasbro's 6-inch The Black Series line. If you couldn't tell by what's behind me, I'm a pretty avid Black Series collector. I'm not a completionist by any means, but you know, I'm a Clone Wars kid, I'm a prequel kid, so that's a big focus of what I collect when it comes to the Black Series line. And a big part of that, especially being a kid that grew up with the Clone Wars, is the Clone Troopers. I had dozens of Clone Trooper figures when I was a kid, whether it was different units, commanders, named Clone Troopers, you know, whatever it was. I had tons of action figures of Clone Troopers, and that was a huge part of my childhood and my experience with Star Wars. So obviously I do the same thing that most adult collectors do. You chase that nostalgia, you chase that high you had from when you were a kid and you were playing with your favorite action figures. You want to see a lot of the characters that you played with as a kid in the newer lines that you collect now. So because of that, I'm making a most wanted list letting Hasbro know which Clone Troopers I want to see made first in the Black Series line. Now, a couple things before we get into this list. First thing I want to say is I think any Clone Trooper is guaranteed to sell well for the Black Series. Historically, Clone Troopers have always done pretty well for the Black Series line, especially in the last 5 to 7 years, and the line is very healthy right now, and we have a lot of Clone Wars fans in the community right now that are starving for more Clone Trooper figures. Another thing I noticed as this list came together is all the characters I picked were character clones. They weren't just, you know, army builder grunts. So other than my honorable mention, pretty much everything on this list is a named Clone Trooper, whether ranked or not. And if you're surprised to not see certain Clone Trooper characters on the top 10, stay tuned because I've got a couple ideas for multi-packs at the end of the video as well. And finally, this is my list. So if this list makes you upset or you think it's a stupid list, I don't really care. So coming in first with our honorable mention, this is the only troop builder Clone Trooper that's going to make the list. It is the ARF Trooper. The ARF Troopers were first introduced in the Clone Wars movie, and we saw different, you know, paint schemes and unit iterations of them throughout the series. This would be an extremely easy one for Hasbro to do. It's really just a new helmet slash head sculpt on the existing Clone Trooper body. This would be an extremely easy one for Hasbro to do, and I think they would make a lot of money off of it, especially being an army builder. I did have a few ARF Trooper action figures when I was a kid from the Clone Wars animated line, and they were some of my most favorite ones to play with, so I definitely had to include them on this list. Moving into the official top 10, our number 10 spot is going to go to Clone Commander Doom from Season 6 of the Clone Wars. Something really cool about the Clone Wars series that I always remember as a kid, and with people that also grew up with the show that I talked to, they all say the same thing, is you kind of get fixated on the very intricate and unique designs that a lot of these more background Clone Troopers have. Clone Commander Doom is one of them. His design is based off of Dr. Doom from the Marvel Comics, and I think that's a really clever design. He looks absolutely badass. They did make a 3 3/4 inch action figure of him right around, I want to say 2012, 2013, but since then there's been no action figure representation for Commander Doom. I'd love to see him introduced to the 6-inch line. I think he'd really stick out amongst the other Clone Troopers in your display. Looking at number 9, this is one that I am totally just biased by from nostalgia. It is Clone Commander Stone from Season 1 of the Clone Wars. This guy is the Clone Commander that goes with Jar Jar Binks and some other Coruscant Guard when they go to Florum to try and negotiate for Anakin and Obi-Wan back from Hondo Ohnaka. This guy is super cool. I had an action figure of him. He had a removable helmet. This is another one that would be extremely easy for Hasbro to do. No new parts involved. It doesn't even have a comma. Very easy Clone Commander to make. Just completely biased on my end as to why I want this guy. I just think his design is really neat, and it's also very simple. He's also going to stick out on the shelf nicely because other than him, the only red Clone Troopers that we have are the Shock Troopers and Commander Fox right now, so I think he would fit in really well in the collection. Coming in at number 8, we have Clone Commander Jet. This guy showed up in Season 2 of the Clone Wars in the Second Battle of Geonosis arc. This is another one of those clones that was, again, a very brief appearance. He's the one that hung out with Ki-Adi-Mundi. I think this would be a great addition to the collection, considering we already have a Ki-Adi-Mundi in the Black Series right now, and I think he would be a great, unique design. Again, the color scheme would really make him stick out amongst other clone troopers in the collection. Most of him is reuse from other clone trooper sculpts, aside from, again, just making a new helmet, and they could even reuse that helmet on some other clone troopers that we saw from the Clone Wars 2. Coming in at number 7, this is a character actually from the Bad Batch. It is Clone Commander Mayday. Clone Commander Mayday's episode with Crosshair in Season 2 of the Bad Batch was probably one of the most moving clone arcs I've ever seen in any of the clone trooper-centric stories we've had, and Mayday just represents everything that the clone troopers were. They were proud, they were loyal, right to the very end, and as a kid who grew up with the Clone Wars, this was an incredibly moving episode to watch, and, you know, as someone who has a very, very soft spot for the clone troopers, his end was very sad to see. So I would love to get Mayday. Again, a lot of just overlays on an existing clone trooper body. I would love to see a cool removable helmet with that facial hair. I think Hasbro would really knock that out of the park, and I'd really like to add him to the Bad Batch collection. Coming in at number 6, we have another clone trooper from the Bad Batch. It is Clone Captain Hauser. Captain Hauser has a huge role in multiple seasons of the Bad Batch, and he ends up kind of being Rex's second in command by the 3rd season of the show. So I think it'd be very fitting. I'd obviously like to see his earlier seasons look, where he has the pauldron, where we see him on Ryloth, and he's got that really, really neat look. I'd be all over that. I think it'd be super cool, and I think because he is such an important character in the Bad Batch storyline, I think a lot of people would be in on this one. And now we kick off the top 5 of this top 10 list here. Coming in at number 5, we have Clone Commander Pons. Now, Clone Commander Pons technically was in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. He is the just yellow-striped clone commander that talks to Yoda on the Battle of Geonosis. However, he does also make several appearances in the Clone Wars. We first see him in Season 1, where he is beside Mace Windu. He's really Mace Windu's clone commander for the 187th Legion. However, we do see him come to a terrible, terrible end, being executed by Aura Singh and ejected out of the airlock of the Slave One. This is another one of those clones that just has a lot of unique scenes and a lot of lines throughout multiple seasons and multiple arcs. I think he's pretty important to the Clone Wars storyline, and I would like to see him made into a figure. Moving on to number 4, we have the only theatrical clone trooper on this list. It is Clone Commander Neo. Clone Commander Neo is a pretty obvious one that I'm surprised Hasbro hasn't made yet. He's one of the only clone troopers left from Revenge of the Sith, especially out of the commanders from that movie that we do not have yet in the Black Series line. Hopefully, with 2025 being the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, we'll get some Commander Neo love. Again, this is a very simple one for Hasbro to do, just a couple new overlays and a new helmet, and this would be a very, very good seller. I know that Clone Commander Bakara that was recently pre-released did sell out on the pre-orders on Hasbro Pulse, so I think this one would kind of follow that kind of trend, and we would get good sales on that one for Hasbro, and we would get another clone trooper that we want for the line. And now we have the top 3. Coming in at the number 3 spot, we have Clone Commando Gregor. This is from one of the silliest arcs of the Clone Wars, but it ended up having a really moving moment. We have Gregor from the D-Squad arc, the guy who had amnesia and didn't remember that he was one of the most elite clone troopers in the Grand Army of the Republic. This guy's paint is extremely intricate. I don't know how Hasbro would pull this off. I know they could do well, I just don't know if they would try and push this one to be a deluxe figure or not. He's an extremely cool character, and I remember when I watched the Clone Wars for the first time and saw this guy come to what I thought would be his demise, it did move me almost to tears as a child. So this is one that I would love to add to the collection, and I think would be a fine addition. Another main clone trooper that a lot of people have been asking for in the line for a long time now, and I think a lot of people would pick this one up. Coming in at the number 2 spot, we have one of my favorite clone troopers of all time, Clone Trooper Denal. Denal was a clone trooper that showed up in the first couple seasons of the Clone Wars. He was kind of Rex's second-hand man at the beginning of the show. Ultimately, he does die at the hands of Cad Bane, and then Cad Bane takes his armor and disguises himself as Denal to get away from the exploding Separatist cruiser in the second season of the show. This was very, very difficult for me to watch. I was crushed because I remember as a kid, I totally latched on to Denal the second that I saw him in the arc where R2 gets lost in the first season, and I was like, oh, this is my guy, this is my favorite clone, and then seeing him die was really sad, really disappointing. So I would love to see Denal in the Black Series, literally just a repaint. Literally a repaint of the existing clone trooper for Phase 1, and I think a lot of people would pick this one up for the same reason I have, the nostalgia. And finally, number 1, we have probably one of my most favorite clone trooper designs in all of Star Wars. It is the Phase 2 look for Clone Captain Forto in the 2003 Clone Wars micro series. Captain Forto's look specifically from the attack on Coruscant in the second volume of the 2003 Clone Wars series is amazing. I think we all know that one scene where he has that montage where he's fending off dozens and dozens of super battle droids, telling the troops to fall back before Yoda swoops in and saves the day. Such a neat design. If I understand correctly, I think people have kind of gotten this to be a sort of Commander Neo looking helmet, a bark speeder helmet. However, he might have a unique fin on the top. There's no real way to tell just because it's such a stylized animated show, but I think no matter what Hasbro decides to do with this as their interpretation of the design, I'm all over it and I'm buying it day one, and I know most other collectors would too. Now, lots of clone troopers that you might have expected to see on the list that didn't make it, and that's because a lot of these clone troopers, especially in the Clone Wars, come in pairs or small groups. So rather than taking up multiple spots or trying to pick one over the other for the top 10, I decided to come up with a short list of multi-packs I think Hasbro could really make a lot of money off of, and I think we as collectors would absolutely eat up. Kicking off with one of the most iconic clone trooper duos, it's Waxer and Boyle. Specifically, I'd like to see them in their Season 1 appearances from the Ryloth arc towards the end of Season 1 of the Clone Wars. These guys were awesome. They had a whole episode dedicated to just them and their relationship with Numa. I think these guys would be awesome. Again, just straight up repaints. Hasbro could make some money off of just reusing the Book of Boba Fett bald Boba Fett head, and then they could literally just slap that on with some facial hair for Waxer, give Boyle just the standard clone trooper look with the facial hair, and you're done. It'd be a very easy look, and it'd be very easy for them to do. It'd be an easy pickup for most collectors, including myself. Now this next one here, I don't know how Hasbro would do this one or what they would price it at. It would be a 5-pack, and it would get a little pricey. I think this might actually get some people turned off, but who knows, because it's also this group of clone troopers, specifically talking about Clone Troopers Hardcase, Jesse, Tup, Kix, and Dogma. All 5 of the major named clone troopers that we saw in the Umbara arc of the Clone Wars. One of the most infamous and famous arcs for clone trooper lovers in the Clone Wars is the Umbara arc. Getting all 5 of these guys together, to me, was way better than just picking 1 or 2 to put on the list. I kind of put all these guys kind of synonymously together, and if I were to get all of them separately, I would just put them all together in the same group on the shelf anyway. So Hasbro should just make it easy on themselves, just do 5 repainted clones, give them all their little face tattoos and their little, unique haircuts and stuff, and call it a day. And I think people would eat this pack up. And this is one of those, the more I think about it, let me know what you guys think, but I think people would be in on this as a 5-pack. Next up would be a 3-pack idea. We have Clone Troopers Sinker, Boost, and Comet, the Wolfpack Clone Troopers. I personally would like to see these guys in their Phase 2 appearances, just so they could match up with the existing Clone Commander Wolf figure that we have, and we could also pose them up with our latter season's Plo Koon. These figures would be absolutely amazing, and again, these are especially easy to do as they would, again, just be repaints, and I think Hasbro could do really well with them, as I've been saying with a lot of these designs, and I think collectors would love to see these. Hot Toys actually recently dipped their toes into the Wolfpack, and to my understanding, they're selling pretty well, so maybe Hasbro should follow the trend. Next up is a 4-pack from the Bad Batch, and this one is something that I can't believe Hasbro hasn't made yet. It would be the Season 3 looks right at the end of Season 3, where they have that blacked out stealth armor for Hunter, Crosshair, Wrecker, and Echo. I would love to see this. I think it's such an easy cash grab, as they literally have all the existing parts for these figures, and you just maybe change an overlay or two for Hunter and Wrecker, and that's it. You would have all 4 figures in the blacked out stealth armor. I would buy them. I know lots of other people would, so I don't know why Hasbro hasn't done this one yet. Such an easy cash grab for such an amazing look in the show. And again, just do these as a 4-pack. Just knock them all out all at once, different than even how they did the Season 2 looks at Walmart, where they did them all as separate figures. Just release these all as one set and people will pick them up. Next up is another 2-pack. I think this is another one that would really sell well. It is Clone Troopers 5s and Echo from Season 3 of the Clone Wars, or the Attack on Kamino. We have 5s and Echo in their ARC Trooper looks, but I also had action figures of these looks for 5s and Echo when I was a kid, and they were some of my favorite action figures to play with as far as my Clone Troopers went. Again, removable helmets would be extremely easy to do because we already have the heads for 5s and Echo in the Black Series, so just give them those more intricate paint apps and you'd slap them in a 2-pack, people would eat them up. Another one here, a little 3-pack, and I did have, again, all 3 of these Clone Troopers in the animated 3 3/4 line. It is Clone Lieutenant Thyre and Clone Troopers Jek and Reese. You could give these guys some really cool accessories. I know Jek was one of the first Clone Troopers to have the Z6 rotary cannon in the Clone Wars, and I think it'd be a great way to introduce that new accessory, and you could slap that with a lot of the other Clone Troopers that I've talked about on this list. And then on top of that too, I'd love to see Hasbro do the backpack, because I know that Reese wears that backpack, and I think these guys would just look so cool. It's a great set. You could slap them with one of your Yoda figures that you already have in the Black Series, and they would look really good, or you could also pose them up with your Asajj Ventress figure that already exists in the Black Series too. The next one here is another one from the Bad Batch Season 3. Let's get Captain Rex's Clone Trooper Force from Season 3. These are very simple paint designs with just a couple different overlays here. You could even do another version of Captain Hauser with this. There was a purple one, a red one, a green one. They were super cool designs, very basic, but I loved the extra pouches all over the chest armor and the thighs. I think these look super cool, and I think people would pick them up. I know I would love to add them to my Bad Batch display. And finally, you knew it was coming. This is Blitz Transmissions. How was I not going to include Blitz somewhere? He probably would have been #1 on my most wanted Clone Troopers list, but I felt like that was a little too biased. So I said, you know what? Let's get all 4 of the Rancor Battalion ARC Trooper Commanders in one little 4-pack here. You get Blitz, you get Havoc, you get Hammer, you get Colt, all in the same pack. These guys would be awesome. They would look amazing. I love how the unit is like the primary colors for Rancor Battalion, and I know that people would eat these up. And again, these are literally straight reuse of the existing figures for ARC Troopers 5s and Echo. You just give them different paint apps. Every single one of them, done. Easy as that. They've literally done 3 of the 4 of these commanders in the TVC line for the Clone Wars 20th anniversary a little bit ago, so I think this would be an easy way to move those figures and just get them in the Black Series as well. Balance the scales, Hasbro, as some of you people say. I think it'd be a great way to do that. And that's it. That's my list and some of my suggestions for Clone Troopers that I want most in the Black Series right now, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and just know, I'm gonna buy every single Clone Trooper that comes out for the Black Series. I am a cloner myself. Have you seen the sweatshirt? I'm a cloner. Better class of soldier. We all know that. Better class of soldier than those stupid Stormies. All jokes aside though, guys, I am in on any Clone Trooper that comes out in the Black Series. I know many of you are as well, those of us who grew up with especially the Clone Wars, but also the prequel era. And with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know, what Clone Troopers do you think you want to see most in the Black Series? I know there are some that I missed, and make sure to let me know in the comments below which ones you would like to see most. And finally, guys, if you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. Make sure to check out my social media, all of which is linked in the description below. I do lots of reviews here on the channel. If you'd like to see some of those reviews early, or if you just like to support the channel, you could check out the Rancor Battalion channel membership. Link for that's in the description below. Just 99 cents a month gives you access to some of my reviews early and some exclusive community posts. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.